Welcome to this episode of Living Simpler. Today I'm with Erin Trier, and I'm really excited because Erin and I have so many similarities in our philosophies. And a lot of times when you talk to someone in the functional health space, their philosophy came because there were issues in their health or their family's health or something, and they didn't feel like they were heard and they didn't feel like they were cared for in the way that they felt they should have been.
Yeah.
So, Erin, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I want you to tell me how you got into functional health.
Amy, thank you so much for the opportunity to just have this conversation today. I am just a huge believer in normalizing conversations around health, especially for women, especially as we get into kind of the midlife health season. We've lived some of our life, our health has evolved over time, and we have a lot of knowledge, right? We have a lot of wisdom, we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of experience, and just being able to be in a forum like this and share together is such a gift. So thank you for having me. As far as my journey with getting into functional health, it started more for me, but it also has been part of our family story and my son's story, which I'll talk about a little bit. But long story short, for me, I've always been active. I've always had a passion for health. I grew up an athlete, was active most of my young adulthood life. And, as I stepped into motherhood, things just started to shift, right? I'm a mom of four, and with every pregnancy, like the postpartum journey was different for me every single time. And so I found myself really having to recalibrate on, how do I take care of me? How do I prioritize my needs? What does that even look like? And how do I make sure that I'm really filling my cup so I can pour back into my family? And, in the beginning of my motherhood journey, a lot of what I was doing worked, right? I was getting to the gym when I could, or I was working out at home. I was eating clean or healthy enough. And I saw results. I felt good. I felt energized. And I was able to get to a place of really feeling like myself over the first couple pregnancies. And then as I got older, right, I got kind of into my mid 30s, late 30s, my third baby, my fourth baby, I started to really experience this shift where what I was once doing didn't really work anymore. And it was a very alarming experience for me because I really do care deeply about health. I really believe it is the thing that powers everything that we can do in our day to day, from our work to our relationships to everything. And so prioritizing it has always been a big passion of mine, and something that I've really tried to prioritize, for every season of my life in different capacities. And so for things to start to go backwards and for things to not work anymore was really challenging. It was defeating beyond words. It was debilitating for a lot of different reasons. And I didn't really know where to turn. I had the knowledge on basic fitness, right? Moving my body, making sure I'm eating healthy, making sure I'm trying to manage my stress and sleep. And I had a lot of the foundational knowledge, but I really felt like there was this piece missing. Like my body was rapidly going in the opposite direction. I had really intense symptoms start to crop up more and more, specifically after my fourth pregnancy. And mentally and emotionally, I struggled the most, right? Like really debilitating anxiety, really low lows. When I talk about this season of my life and in my story, I describe it as I was walking around with a weighted blanket and I didn't know why, right? Like I had no energy. I had very low motivation, and it just felt like who I was and what I had always known of myself to show up in my life was not there anymore. It was like I was just bled dry and I didn't really know why. And so that was really when I decided, you know what? I need to expand my knowledge. I need to figure out, like, what are the missing components to my wellness and how my health is evolving that I don't yet understand. And that was when I decided to kind of dive into functional health and learn from functional health doctors, practitioners, and people that had a functional health focus. And learning that in my own journey has changed my life. And it has completely changed the trajectory of how I now coach and the knowledge that I've had and the certifications I've gone through, et cetera. And so the biggest gift that I've learned inside of functional health is how you're looking at the body as a whole, right? Nothing happens in isolation. No symptoms happen in isolation. The body is a spider web and all of our organs are working together. And so functional health looks at the whole body and assesses, if you have this symptom, like debilitating anxiety or like really low energy, why is that at the root? What is happening underneath the surface? And how do we get honest about going deep enough to really help support your body from the inside out? And so I loved learning that and getting
Mhm.
exposure to that because I had never had that kind of exposure. It's nothing that I had grown up learning. And once you know, you can't unlearn it, right? It's unbelievably mind blowing and unbelievably eye opening. And, as I dove deeper into the functional health space, I worked with a lot of different functional practitioners that all had different incredible knowledge, different scope of practice, different expertise who helped me continue to peel back the onion on what was it that my bio-individual body needed? And how did I get to a place of slowly building a strategy that really served my longevity health best? And so, in a nutshell, that's kind of what's brought me to functional health and my personal journey. And like I talked about at the beginning, a big part of my desire for really understanding like bio-individual health practices and protocols, deeper root cause, things like that, is my son. Our son is 11. He has a very rare genetic disorder. It's called tuberous sclerosis complex. It is a disorder where the body spontaneously grows benign tumors on major organs like the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the eyes, and things like that. And so they are benign, but they can become a problem, right? And so for me, it was really an interesting thing to kind of think about, okay, what is happening with his bio-individual body, right? Like, how can I learn to also support him in a very specific way based on his genetic predispositions, what he individually needs, and the genetic disorder that he does have, right? So that has been another side of my passion as far as learning more about root cause, because there is so much we can do to profoundly change how we feel day in and day out, our energy, our mood, setting ourselves up for longevity success. And it's all about learning what you individually need. And, it's been such a journey, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at, Amy. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's great. And actually, the best thing is it answered like 3 questions that I
Yeah.
had. So that's lovely and perfect. Again, I feel such a kinship with you because I know that you hold fitness certifications just like I do. My background was running fitness studios. I was a sports nutritionist. And yet, just like you described, I felt like I had so much knowledge. But then when all of the things that had worked in my 20s and my 30s stopped working,
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, I have to now eat less. I have to work out harder.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do more of what worked in the past.
Right.
And often that's the mindset of most women is, oh, well, this worked for me in the past. So it's
Right.
probably going to work for me in the future. I just have to do more of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And first of all, there's only so many hours in a day. I couldn't have really worked out a whole lot more and still been a functioning human.
Yeah.
And, I was already eating very clean and all of that. And there just were so many little things that I feel like I was missing in my own health journey that now like you said, I look back and you can't unsee and you can't unlearn now the
Yeah.
things that you know. And unfortunately, I was dealing with traditional allopathic medical doctors
Yeah.
who were every time a symptom came up, it was like they were playing whack-a-mole
Oh,
with the symptom. And they're like, oh, well, you have a symptom here. Here's a new pill. And literally, I had a shoebox of that was just full of prescriptions. And every time I had a new symptom, they're like, here, well, now that's a side effect of this other pill. So we need to give you another pill for that symptom. And
yeah.
I'm like, this is crazy. I'm a healthy weight. I eat healthy. I work out. All of these things, there has got to be something deeper going on here.
Right.
And so you're talking about bioindividuality. And I love this conversation so much because it's not something that is typically being discussed
Yes.
in our typical medical doctor appointments. You walk in, you say, I have a symptom, and they're like, I have a pill.
Yep.
Totally fine until it isn't.
Right.
So tell me, because we're very much in alignment on this, what does bioindividuality mean to you, and how do you work with your clients to ensure that we're getting to their root cause and working with them to build protocols that work for them and follow up to ensure that it's still working or
Right.
that we're tweaking? So tell me a little bit more about that in your practice.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about just kind of how our system is set up. And one of the things I like to talk about a lot in my coaching work, but also with my clients or just in everyday conversation really, is how our healthcare system overall is set up to be reactive. Like you said, you come in with a symptom, you come in with an issue, here's the quick band-aid, and we're going to look at it in isolation. And that at the end of the day is not a proactive mindset. It's not longevity focused, and it's not enough to really go deeper, which is what you really need, you know? And so for me, when I think of bioindividuality and I think about how I coach my clients and how I talk about this concept inside of my work, it's really about understanding your uniqueness, right? So physiologically, every single one of us is different, right? We have different genetic predispositions. We have different lifestyles. We have different stress factors. We have different habits and routines. Every single one of us has a different makeup that's happening in our environment, but also physiologically. And so when we're thinking about health, I like to look at the whole picture, right? It's not just fitness. It's not just nutrition. It's all of these other buckets, right? How are things relationally in your life? How are things spiritually in your life? How are things in your environment, from, you know, the stress you're managing to the products you use and so much more, right? All of these factors play a role in how you bio-individually need a plan. So
Mm.
I always am looking at like this whole picture of health and assessing things in a bigger view. But beyond that, like the way that I really help support women specifically is by using targeted data and figuring out, okay, what are your unique imbalances? What are your unique deficiencies? We're not just going to be continuing on with random supplementation purchases based on what people share online, right? We're going to use targeted information based on your physiology. And then we build a bio-individual plan from there. And when we do that, it really targets in a very efficient way what your body needs. And this is, again, knowledge I didn't have. You know, when I first started coaching, which was over a decade ago, now about 12 years ago, I started in a network marketing model that was focused a lot on one size fits all strategies, right? Like, here's the program, here are the few supplements you should take, here's how you follow it from A to Z, and here's how you need to execute, rather than building the plan into your life, right? And I've learned this firsthand, like the true deep rooted difference between a one size fits all strategy and getting highly personalized and bio individual. And so for me, again, it's really about helping clients understand that we're done guessing, right? We're done like throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. We're done with the old school mentalities and the narratives of we just need to eat less and work out harder and everything's going to work out for our health, like leasing all that, right? We're letting go of it because it doesn't serve us. And instead, we're moving into this headspace of what do I need, right? And how do I figure that out on a physiological level through targeted data? But then how do I build a plan that feels manageable and sustainable based on where I'm currently at in my life? And that's one of the most valuable things I do with my clients is really assess, like, where are you right now in your life? What feels like something you can commit to? Because if you can't commit to it, then you're not going to feel successful, right? And so that is what I want to continue to meet women on when I'm educating about this idea of bio-individuality is the plan should fit you, not the other way around. You shouldn't take a plan and try to adopt it into your life. And if it feels chaotic, then you don't feel successful. Like, that's not healthy. That doesn't feel good. So we have to kind of get into that reversed headspace and figure out, how do we craft the plan to you in a way that feels good?
Yeah. There are just so many things that you said there that I want to kind of circle back to. So, number one is I think that we live in a time nowadays that with our phones, with social media, we have so much information coming up.
Yes.
And we have all of these influencers or people that maybe do work with a network marketing company. And I have no problem with network marketing companies. There's actually a couple of them that I use a lot of their products and love them tremendously. But I think it's so important to discuss the fact that there's information overload,
Mhm.
and what works for you in this bio-individuality may not work for me.
Right.
And going online and just watching all of the reels scroll through your social media, and you're like, oh, well, I should use this supplement, or oh, no, I should add this supplement in. And then you open up your supplement cabinet and you're literally taking 30 to 40 supplements a day. You're spending hundreds of dollars a month. You don't know when to take them together because this supplement interacts weirdly with this supplement and they don't bind well or they don't absorb well
Right.
and all of this. So I just think it's so important that we do, again, talk about looking at labs, looking at data to help work with that individual client to find the best solution for them. And I think one of the challenges that we deal with in the functional health space is that clients often think, well, I'm going to just go to my doctor and run all my labs and
Yes.
they'll do it for me. And the problem is, and when my naturopathic doctor told me this 15 years ago, my mind was blown in
Mine too.
that when you go to a traditional doctor and you run a lab, you're being measured against all the other people that ran that lab
Yep.
in the traditional medical space. So, traditionally, who goes to the doctor
Yeah.
but the people that don't feel good?
Yeah.
So you're being measured in the normal range against other sick people,
Yeah.
not against what's optimal and where you actually feel good. And so you could go to that traditional doctor over and over and over again, and they'll keep telling you, yeah, your labs look normal.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they're missing a lot of the precursors to the things that cause those labs 5 years and 10 years down the line to not be normal.
Right.
And then once you are type 2 diabetic, or once you do have a full blown autoimmune disease that could have been fixed slash corrected 5 and 10 years prior, you're now all of a sudden trying to play catch up.
Right. 100%.
So, tell me, because I don't want to be the only person that my listeners are hearing say this stuff. I want you to tell them your experience with having labs run within your traditional medical system versus how you're doing it.
It's such a great question. And I love that you're bringing this up because this is a really important topic to just have discussions around. And one of the things that I have found the more I coach and the more women I speak to is that we just truly have not been educated enough. Right. And my goal as a coach is to give women the information so they can go to their doctor and feel equipped with the questions. So they can go in and have informed knowledge so they can make empowered decisions for what they truly need. And, in a lot of the conversations I've had, the hardest part inside of how our system is set up is oftentimes women are not validated. Women are not seen, they're not heard, they're not led down a path to really nurture their evolving wellness with intention. And that's really hard. It's heartbreaking. And so we have to be speaking up together about this as women and saying, like, this is my experience. This is what I've learned. This is what I want to equip you with so you can also be educated and figure out in the best way possible what is the way forward for your own wellness. And so for me, I've gone to traditional GPs, OBGYNs have kind of done the standard run of the mill check-ins, right? Seeing them every 1 to 2 years. And whenever I had asked about blood work, there were very basic blood markers that they would run, right? Like a very basic metabolic panel, a very basic lipid panel, like looking at cholesterol. If I wanted to have my thyroid tested, it was really only looking at something like TSH, things along those lines. Sex hormones were never a part of the journey or the story. Like that was something that wasn't really tested. Cortisol was another one, right? Like oftentimes I had gone in and asked about testing and the conversation was, there's no way to get an accurate picture of something like that. So why even bother? And this is what I've learned inside the functional health space is yes, actually you can test it. And there are very intentional ways of testing it. And once you understand things like your cortisol waking pattern and where your sex hormones truly are at, like it can be mind blowing as far as really understanding physiologically, like what are the deficits that your body is managing. And the thing that we haven't been taught enough as women is how crucial our sex hormones are for so many different functionalities in the body, from how we manage stress to how our metabolic health functions overall to blood sugar stability and so much more. And so when our sex hormones become depleted inevitably as we get into midlife health, as we move towards the menopause transition, et cetera, like we have to learn, okay, what do we need to be doing to start to optimize those things, right? Because there's a lot of lifestyle factors that matter. There's also strategic supports we can explore, but we've never been taught or educated enough about the most beneficial details of what could actually help us. And so that's really what I've learned, Amy, is how there's a major difference between like normal labs that can be run at a traditional doctor in a conventional setting versus optimal labs, broader, deeper lab markers, right? To really look at things like inflammation, deeper thyroid panel, deeper metabolic panel. What are things like iron and ferritin looking like for overall energy? Like it's just more comprehensive. It's deeper and broader. And that's what the functional health space does. Because when you do, that's how you really start to see the bigger picture of wellness. And it allows you to go deeper into the root of what you might be managing symptom wise.
Well, and also women's hormones as we're transitioning into things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of those things have such a huge impact on
Yes.
how the rest of our processes in our body operate. And I was shocked
Yes.
at how, for women, we start actually entering into perimenopause for some people as early as their like mid 30s,
Yes.
maybe even sooner. Some women, it's their beginning 40s. And by the time you get to be my age, where I'm 49
Yeah.
at this point, and I'm still in menstruation, but I'm definitely noticing in my own symptoms how my hormones are going up and down.
Yep.
And then to be able to have the ability to run those labs and to see, oh my gosh, there are times of the month where my progesterone really isn't doing its job. And so I'm showing up estrogen dominant.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everything's really weird.
Yes.
And then there are other times of the month where my estrogen should be normal and it's not, it's really, really low. And then all of a sudden in those days, my blood pressure is through the roof because estrogen helps with vasodilation and everything. And it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
whereas I went to a cardiologist for a year and a half and they never once ran my hormones.
Right. Right.
And instead, they just gave me different blood pressure medicines.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reality, right? And you hit the nail on the head when you just shared that story is what we have to understand about conventional med is there is a time and a place, and it is such a necessity, right? We are so blessed that we have so many incredible medical opportunities to take care of our wellness in a variety of different ways. At the same time, we have to understand that conventional med is siloed, right? They know their specialty on a very deep level, which again is so tremendous. But when you're thinking about whole health and you're trying to understand symptoms on a deeper level into the root, it's really important to think about like, okay, how can I look at this from a spider web view, kind of like I talked about, because every organ and every system is working together very intricately inside the body. And so it's so crucial to kind of have the knowledge of both sides. So again, you can get educated about what your body needs.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book Good Energy?
Yes. Love that book. Love it.
That is one of my favorite books. And it's one that I recommend so many of my clients read because I think it describes from the actual allopathic medicine viewpoint exactly how she was trained in medicine and how and again, I'm going to recommend to all of our listeners, please just go read the book.
Yeah.
But she talks a lot about how she went to Stanford and was wildly successful in her schooling. And as she started getting into her residencies, everyone kept encouraging her to go to some form of specialty. And so she was going into ear, nose, and throat at the time. And they tried to like get her to specialize in this one little piece inside the ear,
Yeah.
and that she described it just like you did as medicine is happening in a silo.
Yep.
And for me, when I was having my health issues, they're like, okay, you need to go see the cardiologist. You need to go see the immunologist. You need to go see a gynecologist. You need to go see a neurologist. And every single one of those specialties may have been the best person in their specialty.
Yeah.
but they were looking at their one piece so deeply
Yeah.
that they were, again, missing the one big piece that was going to affect all of it.
Right.
And, we wonder as women why we're so frustrated and why we're tired. And I don't remember who it was, that might be Sarah Gottfried, that was talking about when she did her own journey into menopause. And she is a doctor, an OBGYN, and she's talking about how when she went in and was doing her residency, a doctor passed a patient off to her and said, "Oh, we have another WW." And she's like, "Well, what's a WW?" And he said, "A whiny woman."
Wow.
And what was happening in that particular environment was that they were labeling women in menopause or in perimenopause that were going through all of these crazy things, frozen shoulder, hair loss, depression,
Yeah.
all of this stuff that is associated with our hormones shifting, and just labeling them whiny women and then giving them a pill for the frozen shoulder and then giving them a pill for an SSRI for emotions and all of the things. And I love that as women, we're standing up and having the conversations,
Yeah.
that we're educating ourselves for ourselves and our families,
Yes.
and that we're not afraid to say anymore, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take that. This is normal. You're 50 and this is just what's going to happen to you. And oh, by the way, this is as good as it's going to get."
Yeah. Yeah. We're not tolerating that anymore.
Yeah,
No.
we're not. And I love that. It makes my heart sing when I talk to other people just like you that are really doing their best to bring to their community why this is so important.
Yes. And it is so important.
Thank you. So tell me, what are some of the things that you see? Again, obviously, knowing bioindividuality, and nothing is the exact right routine for each individual person, but what are some of the common things that you see women doing that you think may be draining their energy or not allowing them to live in their best, most healthy self?
Such a great question. And, in my experience, even in my own journey, right? And I see this often, especially with women who are kind of in the 30, 40, 50 range. We're caught in old narratives. We really are. And, a lot of women that I speak to are really stuck in the narrative of, you spoke to this, like, I just have to do more and work harder and press through and do all the things for all the people and try and grind forever and underfuel myself on nutrition, on sleep, on managing my stress, on my boundaries, etc. So like there's this major imbalance of how much we're giving and how much we're giving back to ourselves. And I see this a lot with women. And that, especially when you're moving into hormonal chaos in midlife, is a recipe for backfiring. And I've learned this firsthand in my own journey, but I see it daily with the women I speak to, right? Like we just are inundated with managing all the things between kids, jobs, marriages, everything. And we aren't slowing down to be intentional enough with really filling our cups. And with that is this idea of major amounts of stress. And when we are in a completely stressed out, chronic stress state, where we're overtraining or overexerting and we're not fueling enough, we're not resting enough, we're not stress managing enough, again, our body just starts to kind of shut down and says, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I am holding on to literally anything and everything because I don't feel safe. I don't feel cared for. I don't feel loved. And I have no other choice. Right. And again, this is speaking from experience. Like my body and my health was going completely in the opposite direction because I was holding on to all of these old narratives for so long of, I just need to try harder. Right. I just need to try harder. I just need to, stay in a cut or cut back on my calories or make sure that I'm doing this, this, and this. And it really doesn't serve us. And I like to really help women understand, like, even if it worked at some point, it's okay. And it's actually supposed to be this evolution of, okay, but what do I need now? Right? Where am I at now? What does my body and brain need now? And how do I get intentional with nurturing that? And so that is really the biggest thing I see is we're caught in old narratives. We've been stuck in the old school marketing for so long of what's quote unquote healthy. And like we've already talked about, we haven't been educated enough on this concept of, but what do you individually need? And how do we empower you with knowledge and information to get you to that place? And so that's really what I would focus on most with that question, Amy. But it's so good. I feel like I could go in a bunch of different directions, but that's the biggest one.
Yeah. And what you touched on there, I think, is just so valuable because I'm constantly talking to my clients about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system and how our brain literally is wired to keep us safe.
Yes.
And, it was done to make sure that we didn't like go and run into a bear,
Yeah.
or that if we did see a bear, that our fight or flight would activate and we could run as fast as we could and all of that. But in modern times, we aren't typically in danger of being attacked by a bear. We're now like dealing with all of this stuff that's coming at us on our phones, on our computers, bad news. The news makes money by selling bad news
Yes.
and all of those things. And so we're constantly living in this state of fight or flight. And so in taking that rest that you're talking about and reducing that stress and really trying to take a step back into that parasympathetic nervous system, all of a sudden it's amazing how much the weight releases,
Yes.
how much the symptoms start to get better themselves. But again, because it's not a pill or because it's not something that we think is prescribed to us,
Yeah.
we don't really think about how much that one little set of shifts can make such a huge difference in our lives.
Yes. And it does. You're so right.
So I ended up being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease after having mold toxicity. So I always like to talk to my clients about all of the toxins in our life and our toxic barrel and how, we're just inundated with
Yes.
all of this stuff. And my company is called Living Simpler because I can't get rid of every toxin in my life. I just can't do it. It's not practical. I can't eat organic everything all the time. I am still going to go every once in a while and have an order of French fries at a restaurant or whatever. But tell me, when you're working with your clients, what are the toxins that you like to recommend as like the low hanging fruit
Yes.
that people can remove and live a little simpler,
Yeah.
but yet still keep their quality of life?
Love this question because it's one of the things that I have grown to become more passionate about the more I learn. And when I think about low hanging fruit or things that you can do that can actually start to make a profound impact is what are you using in your products, right? So that's everything from skincare to makeup to how are you washing your dishes? How are you washing your laundry? How are you washing your floors? What is your air quality like in your home? What's your water quality like in your home? And I know even rattling this probably sounds overwhelming, but I promise you, if you start to go like pick a room and pick a drawer in the room and go little by little and chip away as you run out of things and swap those with cleaner alternatives,
Yeah.
it will start to transform literally how your home feels, how the air feels. Like you just feel cleaner. I don't even know if that makes sense, but you feel cleaner. And, as someone who, especially with the holidays coming up, like I've always loved like all the scented candles and all the really wonderful smelling stuff. But I've learned over time, like how toxic that can become, especially when you're in your home and you're absorbing that through your air quality all the time. And so just getting educated about everything that you're putting on your skin, to what you're breathing, to what you're consuming from food and water, like all of it can add to your toxic barrel, like you were talking about. And we are inundated at all times and we cannot control everything. So it really has to be about, well, what can I control? And the best thing now, especially in more of the clean living spaces, there are more and more amazing options and so many awesome like female owned businesses and entrepreneurs that are diving deep into how do we clean up our foods? How do we clean up our products? How do we get more mindful and educate the larger society about this because it's so important. And that's been such a wonderful thing that I've learned along my journey, because there's so many incredibly educated, amazing people out there who really want others to learn how much this matters for our health. And so, lowest hanging fruit, think about your products. Like, choose a room in your house, think about how you want to swap. And as you run out of things, slowly go one thing at a time. Like, that's how I've done it. I'm still doing it, right? I still have things in my house that I want to slowly get rid of, but it has to be this slow process where you chip away intentionally. And over time, you're going to start to see and feel the impact.
I could not agree with you more. I love that you said as things start to run out,
Yeah.
because I think that as you are rattling it all off and we start thinking about, oh my goodness, my lotion, my skincare, my hair care, my house cleanser, my laundry detergent, my dish detergent, all the things, it starts to feel wildly overwhelming.
Yes.
And for me, I will say that the thing that I switched out first was my laundry detergent.
Yeah.
Because for me, and once I switched it out, now that I go back to anything conventional, I end up in hives.
Yes. Me too.
So crazy.
Yeah.
But anything that is on my skin, my largest organ on my body,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was as clean as I could be there.
Yes.
And then my next one was my lotions.
Yep.
And so I'm really good about my lotions. And then our next one is that I've started shifting as we do run out around the house is all of our like cleaning products, what we use
Yep.
on our dishes, what we use on our floors, all of that stuff. And it's funny because we participated in an event recently where we were handing out cleaning products to families on behalf of an organization. And we walked in and my husband's like, oh my goodness, it smells so clean and I have a headache.
Yeah.
And, he could care less about most of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost instantaneously, he noticed it himself.
Right.
And it's so funny once you start to take things out and your body does start to heal from that kind of thing,
Yeah.
how quickly it reacts and how quickly you can tell when something is not in alignment with what your body is happy to have on it.
Yes.
When I spray myself with my perfume, and I love my perfume, I went from wearing it every day to now probably once every couple weeks.
Yeah.
But instantaneously, when I spray it, I can genuinely like feel my sinuses close up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so bad, but I
Wild.
love it so much. What am I going to
I know, it's wild. And I love that you bring up this topic, Amy, because I'm a mom of four, right? I have two daughters. And, one of the things that I'm also passionate about as a coach is like the ripple effect of how this is going to change, hopefully, how our kids are going to grow up, right? The things that they're exposed to, and what can we equip them with? What can we help them learn? And what knowledge can we pass on? And, my oldest daughter is 14. And she's getting into that pubescent stage. And, there's a lot of things that are going to affect her hormone health. And one of those things is products, right? There are products in our environment that have endocrine disrupting chemicals. And when we are pouring that all over our body, all over our hair, we're inhaling it, et cetera, it really does change like how our sinuses feel, and so much more. And so it's just getting educated and slowly chipping away and figuring out like what can you do to kind of clean up your environment to just help support your body the best you can from the inside out.
Awesome. Well, I will tell you, you and I could probably sit here and geek out on this for hours and hours on end.
Yes.
I am so appreciative of you for what you're bringing to our world, to our women who are making the decisions for their families and who are educating the next generation. So hopefully they'll be healthier than we are in our own lives. So where can our audience find you?
So I am most active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Erin K. Trier. And then you can also look me up on my website, which is erintrier.com. I have my podcast listed up there alongside a blog and some information that I share about different kind of coaching programs that I offer. But above all, like I love to connect with other people to hear their story and how I could potentially support you or point you in the direction of making some changes, of learning about functional health, of figuring out like cleaner brands or swaps. Like I'm an open book, so please reach out anytime.
Love that. And we will make sure that all that is in the show notes and everything too. Erin, thank you. This was a joy, and I would love to keep in touch. I think that we will be fast friends.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Amy. So grateful for you.
Thanks, Erin. You too.